Wait for it. Wait for it. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, the one, the only, the legendary Mr. Tox, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers.
Thank you, man. Yeah, my name is Tox. I am super old, 36, from New Jersey. 3 kids, all under the age of 4. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's that. I'm the CEO of 3 companies, one Malice, another one that's recently launched as of last year, Metric Incorporated, and then Mischief and Malice, which is really where most of my attention is poured right now.
So what I'm hearing, sir, is you need another hobby.
Oh, for sure.
So you don't have the 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th kids. Got it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the kids get old enough, they can just, just start running the business and kind of just take it off my hands. So
I hear the children yearn for the mines.
That's right.
The Amish have that same business model. I need more workers. Make another
free labor.
Kid.
That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 100%.
So Stabby, have you tried that with your kids? Send them to the mines, see if that helps.
I've tried multiple things with that kid. Beat him with the Switch. I mean, no. Let him play
you beat him
Switch.
With love.
Let him play the Switch. Sorry, no. No. He knows how to do his own laundry, and he knows how to do the dishes, and he knows how to mop, but he half-asses all of it. So I have to go back and redo it.
That sounds about the average teenager. The next part of the introduction, dear listener, dear viewer, is how we found them. And so I found Tox through his Discord channel when I was trolling the Discords. I don't know. The Discord boards. There's an acronym that they mush the words together. We're just going to go with it. Smile and nod, people. Smile and nod. But his game sounded cool because, Mischief and Malice. What kind of name is that? Caught my attention. The logo, which... do I have that art? I think I do. Give me just a second. I'm going to throw that art up on the screen. There we go. I got it ready. I mean, how does that... There you go, Nick. You got it for me, brother. Thank you. How do you not like art like that, right? Like, it's like Slayer meets Pokemon. Of course I was curious.
They're Pokemon that want to rob me and then take me on a dark adventure, I think. So
I mean, that sounds like a perfect Tuesday night, to be honest with you. So
yeah, we could do it Tuesday and Wednesday. Just saying.
Agreed.
You remember that Army cadence, Nick? Whips and chains. We're not going to say all the lyrics because this is a family-friendly show. I'm just saying, if that cadence had an avatar, it would be this logo.
Oh yeah,
totally. All right. If you know people, and if not, hit me up in the DM. We'll get you the lyrics. But I can't say that over the air. I'm pretty sure YouTube would ban us for that. Pretty sure. All right. So, sir, before we get started, are you ready for the religion questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Easiest question in the world, Star Wars, for sure.
What is it about Star Wars that speaks to you?
Oh, it's actually good. Yeah, I mean, the other two are not. I've tried and tried and tried. I just can't get into it. But Star Wars for me, was a huge thing when I was a kid. And even though the, current movies leave a lot to be desired as an understatement, I still would take that any day over the others, hands down.
Yeah, we've said it here before, but I really don't think Gene Roddenberry understood human nature. It was a little too utopic for me, like the idea that you just don't need money. He doesn't understand what makes people tick,
right?
In my opinion.
Money and the love of a good woman.
Yeah, but it's the achievement. It's the being able to do something, like working towards something. Just having everything and doing nothing, people go crazy. In fact, did you guys ever watch the was the black and white Hitchcock thing? It's where they did all the weird stuff.
Outer Limits?
No, not Outer Limits. Where they had the spiral that did the hypnotic thing as the intro.
The Twilight Zone?
The Twilight Zone. There we go. They had an episode of Twilight Zone where this guy thought he went to heaven because he got everything he wanted, and it turned out that was hell because he got bored.
Yeah. It's like the first Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like classic retirement syndrome. It's like people go insane when they retire and they just stop doing anything.
Yeah, my stepdad is refusing to retire because he's convinced literally the next day he'll drop dead.
It happens all the time. It's weird.
When I retire, I got like 3 hobbies that I'm ready to get into. They're already in the barrel. They're ready to go.
But that's not a hobby. Those are other jobs. You're not exactly retiring from work. You're just moving to different work. That's a little different than true retirement.
Yeah, but it's fun work. And if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, sir.
But you're not sitting at home playing shuffleboard on the old folk cruise either.
Oh, God, no. I'll
Wait,
go
do
on a
people
cruise
still
as a
play-
vacation.
Yeah, do people still play shuffleboard? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I've
Did you
seen
hear
it.
about the Did you hear about the couple that they realized that it was cheaper to continue to just keep going on cruises than to move into a retirement home?
Oh, I
they've been
believe
on
it.
51 cruises, like back to back. They just
I mean,
live on the boat.
That's not a bad plan if you play. I'm writing that down for later.
It's a great idea.
It's a great idea. All right, and because we're polytheistic over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, the Game of Thrones, the Wheel of Time, or the Chronicles of Narnia?
It's a cop-out answer, but Game of Thrones for sure.
Why is that a cop-out answer?
I think it's the most relevant in the modern era, I would say, probably of the 3 there.
We used to have Lord of the Rings as the third because those are the 3 most iconic, but everyone said Lord of the Rings, and it really wasn't fair. So
Makes
we put
sense.
Chronicles of Narnia because it's contemporary to Lord of the Rings. But C.S. Lewis,
Which is funny because I'm actually like not a Lord of the Rings guy at all.
really.
Anything with like wizards or orcs or anything of like that nature, I just can't. I don't know, man. I don't know what it is. I just can't get into it. Can't get into it.
But they had there were monsters and dragons and stuff in
There
Game
are.
of Thrones.
True. That's true. That's true. To me, like Game of Thrones just has a little bit more of an edge to it, I think.
So you like the
It's
dark?
darker.
you embrace it.
Yeah, it's much darker. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially when it turned into the medieval Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ending kind of sucked because I'm just clearly someone can understand basic logistics. And I've told this before because people have reached out to me about, I want to write military stuff, but I didn't serve. I'm like, have you ever watched a hockey game or football or played any contact sports at all or sports in general? If you can understand a play in a sport, you can understand combat. It's the same general principle. In fact, most sports started as training grounds for warriors. So the idea that you can't understand how to read a play and plan a battle is just the only difference is when you mess up, there's no penalty box. It's the forever box.
Look at
Right.
hockey. You're gliding around on knives and beating the crap out of each other.
And someone
Yeah.
just died in hockey because they got a knife.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
he got his throat slit.
So I mean, see, the only one I couldn't figure out how this translates to combat because most of them have. I actually took a history of sports class in college because I needed an elective field. I don't understand where golf came from because that one is just. I really think someone was just drunk and couldn't find his car keys or something. Because I
It's a
just
Scottish sport, and it's an acronym.
go on.
Okay, it stands for gentlemen only, ladies forbidden.
Okay, that's where the name came from, but the concept behind just whacking a little ball with a stick.
Oh, they just like their cuisine. They made shit up so they can get out of the house and not get nagged by their wives.
No, it started with croquet.
Croquet or crochet? Those are 2 different things.
Crotcheting is not what I'm talking about.
Crotcheting.
Crash.
Crotcheting.
I'm not talking about
Yeah.
crotcheting.
It's a family-friendly show, honey.
Oh.
You know
There's
what?
there's a funny video floating around the military circles where this lady literally knitted a cover in crochet for a tank in the UK, and so they put it on and let her take pictures with it. It's freaking hilarious.
If you're cold, they're cold. Bring them
Yeah.
inside.
Pretty much. All right.
That's how I feel about deer.
I mean, that's what you have gas stoves for, right? To heat them up. The deer, I
You
mean.
know that they call crochet.
What?
You know that they call people who crochet hookers, right?
It's
Oh
also
my God.
positioned in a rugby field.
A hooker?
It's like the quarterback, essentially.
All right.
So
This
how
is
do
really
you
something new
hookers
today.
and no
Yeah,
crocheting?
this is really good stuff to know. I feel like it'll really help some people listening avoid some really difficult situations at some point in their lives. So
Yeah, like I
That's
saw
good.
her playing rugby, officer. I didn't know she was the lady of the evening.
yeah, I mean it's a good excuse. I bet you it would hold up in court somewhere.
The funny one is the guys that'll stop this, the meme, and like you'll do anything for $30. All right, I need you to come paint my house.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, because we are civilized people here, we're not knuckle dragging troglodytes, at least not anymore. Nick and I are in recovery. Sir, coffee ish, and the ish is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Man, so I do not drink coffee or tea at all, like even a little bit. I wake up straight up in the morning, caffeine pills. I just cut out the middleman. Straight up caffeine pills, water, and then I like a lot of Coke Zero. A lot of Coke Zero. Yeah.
I'm a fan of Coke Zero.
Yeah.
Is it because of all the bodybuilding and stuff
like
that you've been
Coke
working
too.
on?
Yeah, dude, I don't know what it is about coffee. I don't like the taste, and I don't like hate it, but if I have a choice, I'd rather just wake up, take caffeine pills and some water, and just go. It's a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I overdosed on caffeine pills as an undergrad because
Yeah.
stuff happens when you go to military college.
How much did you take? Because it takes a lot, man. Because I've
Well,
really pushed the
I was
limits.
combining monsters with no-dos and
Got it.
coffee.
Why do you hate your heart?
No, I just needed
He
to keep
was
my
your
scholarship.
Freddy Krueger.
So I was like, if I just study longer, it makes sense.
Nah, the trick is like stacking it, man. Like when I was younger, I would stack it with like aspirin, like ephedrine, the ECA stack. It was like a big thing. Yeah.
Oh, ephedrine.
Yeah.
God, I miss that stuff.
So
Same.
we were talking in the pre-show. You're here because you invented a new cool card game. Take that, Magic the Gathering. Want to cancel all your cool cards. And you decided you didn't want to care about anybody canceling anything. You're just going to make cool shit and own it. But how did you get into games? Because we were talking in the pre-show, and you've got like a gazillion dollars worth of games in your basement and more upstairs. You probably framed your house with board games if the picture you painted is accurate.
Yeah. So honestly, most of the games I'm into are more like retro video games, specifically Nintendo, like
Okay.
Nintendo 64 era, Game Boy era, that time period. So
Nice.
I've been collecting that for years. Kind of how I started my own business while I was working in my old career was really just buying retro stuff, getting it graded, getting it cleaned up, and then reselling it. And most of what I have is kind of pretty much all paid for with that. And then I got really heavy into grading, if you're familiar with it. And if you're not, basically grading something is just taking something that's new, or at least partially new as possible. There are companies out there that will give it a score from 1 through 10. And then basically those things, collectors really go after things that have a grade, especially in games of like 8+. So you could take a game that's worth $200, but graded is worth over $1,000. So I've been really heavily entrenched into the gaming world for, it's been like 15 years now. And making a game has always been something I wanted to do. And so at the tail end of my prior career, I ended up just saying, screw it, man, and jumped into it head first. So the game has been in development for 2 years, but I would say the last like 6 months, it's just been like blowing up left and right, which has been really cool to see.
Nice. So what was the first game? We'll start with the electronic because you mentioned that. What was the first game you played?
First time I played, man, it was probably like Super Mario Brothers 3 for like the NES. Like
Your New Jersey
super old school.
Mario Brothers.
What's that?
Your New Jersey came out, Mario Brothers.
Mario Brothers. It's true. Yeah, that's a good Jersey thing, man. I don't know why we talk like that, but of all the problems New Jersey people have, that's like the least of them. So it could be so much worse, So yeah, I would say like Mario Brothers, dude. Even if I tried, I can't do it. And like Zelda, Zelda, I think from that era, Zelda was like my thing growing up. And then like I think when I was in probably elementary school, Pokemon, that was kind of like my childhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was Pokemon your first deck builder style game?
Yeah, actually, Pokemon would have been my introduction to card games as a whole in terms of like trading card games. Unless you want to count something cheesy like Uno or something. But yeah, I would say Pokemon was probably it for me.
So for those of us who aren't as aware, what's the difference between a card game and a trading card game? Is that a distinction of type?
Yeah, there is. So there's a few different types, but we'll just break it down into two. You have board games, which are kind of like pre-constructed, right? You buy it, you have it. And so even in board games where you can build your own deck, unless they release an expansion, you own the whole game. So every player is playing the same game. Trading card games, it's kind of implied in the name. The set is so large that you don't have to buy the whole thing up front. And players typically collect and build their own sets. And then in trading card games, you're essentially guaranteed seasons forever. So in a trading card game, you have a new set that is every single season. Typically in some games, it's 4 months, every 6 months. Yeah, I mean, like that's the number one distinction is a trading card game lives on forever. So if you as a new player get into a new game, you know that your cards you buy now work, and then 6 months from now you're going to have another set to choose from and another one and another one. So it's really just kind of like think of it as a board game with perpetual expansion, and they're more collectible. Because that's the other big piece too is like on the collector side of things, there's things called like pull rates. Like in Pokemon's a classic example. We'll go back to like the original base set. Like Charizard was like the big card of that set. And pulling that, it's like I don't know the exact pull rate, but it was like 1 out of every 100,000 pulls, for example. Whereas you have other cards that are rare, but they're not nearly that rare. So that's the other thing too that really kind of factors into the price. Like trading card games tend to be worth a lot of money if the game does well. Board games, everybody has the exact same thing. So there's a lot of discrepancies in terms of like how it's collected and how it's played.
Okay, with the trading card games though, is it always like 1-versus-1 battles? Are there ones that like tell stories? Like I hardly know anything about it.
Yeah, man. So like every game's a little bit different. Some games are really big into like the lore. Like you have games that have like overarching stories. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times like modern trading card games have gotten away from that. Because they're a really big money generator. So 1-versus-1 tends to be the most common thing. Like in Mischief and Malice, as an example, we built it for 4-player and we built it for like 2-versus-2. And then you obviously have like 1-versus-1. But I would say the average game from like a tournament style type setup is 1-versus-1. And I would say the average game now, like Magic is really tough because they're just so all over the place with expansions and we will get into it later, but there's a thing in trading card games that we don't do that most games do called set rotation. And in set rotation, if you guys were to pick any game you want to get into today and you buy cards, Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of the other brands that doesn't do it, but your cards are only playable for 2 years. And after 2 years, they're no longer valid or legal. So you have to basically like your collection doesn't do anything for you. Yeah. It's a great moneymaker for them, but it sucks as a player.
So they nerf your decks basically every so often.
Yeah, typically it's 2 years. The average company does like a 2-year lifespan. So when you're entering tournaments, and like the tournament scene's huge in trading cards. It's huge, like cash prizes, a whole thing. It's like a whole scene. But if you build a deck today, 2 years from now, it's invalid. Those seasons are no longer playable legally. And then, typically the companies will reprint some of those things. They'll like mix in old cards into newer sets. It saves them a lot of time in like research and development too.
Do they ever rotate them back in at a future point where if you hold on to them long enough, the old is new again, or are they permanently gone?
No, they're permanently gone. They basically make you rebuy them because they typically will reprint cards that were played a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much math goes into designing from your end?
More than I wish existed ever, because I hate math, but like on the back end, like when you start out designing a game, the way it looks conceptually, I mean, I can tell you from like 2 years ago to now, it's a completely different game. But there's so much that goes into the mechanics and balancing. And then because, like we talked about, it's a trading card game where you have these like perpetual seasons. You also have to make sure that whatever you're setting up right from day one is flexible enough that you can introduce new mechanics down the line that aren't going to break the game. So it's mostly math. Like everything is math. And like the systems we have, we have programs that we use on the back end that are custom made, that are card builders and deck builders. And then we also have like card design kind of suites where there's rules that we kind of have that are unpublished, where certain rarities and certain creatures have certain amounts of health, certain amounts of attack, certain things that we try to avoid doing. And then, yeah, it's a lot of math, man. It's all formula based.
So how hard was it to build that to beginning? Because you came into this not knowing anything about the back end, right? You were just a super nerd who liked playing cool games and designing one. And you didn't take the route of like Full Sail University in Florida that actually has a game design degree.
No, I just went for it. Honestly, like I had the idea for a long time. My first company I ever started was called Malice. And the branding there is kind of on the darker side. And I really like our people in that company. It's an online kind of like a paid community where we do like education and courses and stuff. But we had a large base that were really into the characters that we started coming up with. I was like designing characters. We were doing merch. We were doing like hoodies and figurines and stuff like that. And I really wanted to kind of take that universe and put it into a game. So I had the idea for Mischief and Malice. And that name is really specific, and I can get back into that in a bit, but just kind of designing it, I knew what I wanted it to look like. It just took, I mean, I'm telling you, thousands of play tests. I mean, thousands to really get it to a point where it's, yeah.
So what is the lore for the world that you built? And while you're answering that, I'm going to put up some of this card stock that you got that we grabbed from. And for anyone, it's because it's in pre-development because it's got a Kickstarter that's going to be. When is your Kickstarter running?
It's going to be starting off in the first week of February.
Okay,
Nice.
So this is the pre stuff, but he's got a lot of stuff already out. You could already buy the base of the game. So I mean, it's pretty much done. The Kickstarter is just gravy on top of and spreading the word, right?
100%. Yeah. So the whole game right now is fully playable on Tabletop Simulator on Steam. So in our Discord, we do nightly play tests. My team is relatively large at this point, and we have guided tours where we set up new players, people that have played a while, and kind of walk them through, and they're just there to answer any questions and kind of teach. So the full first season's done. We're already working on season 2 and some sets for season 3. And while we're kind of doing conventions, but yeah, whole game is playable right now. And then the Kickstarter is really just our major like retail and online distribution like launch. But like you mentioned, we're doing like pre-release starter kits that are going to be in the second week of December, and a bunch of merch that we've started coming out with.
So we will have to see if we can arrange, if you guys are on Steam, because Nick and I, that game we were telling you in the pre-show that sucked all of our money. I mean, we donated to a worthy cause. Don't listen to this, Stabby. You don't need to know this. It's Christmas, I'm sure, or something.
Thanks for diming me out, bro.
Oops, my bad. I will send her like bourbon or something. She'll be distracted. We'll be good. Or coffee. Yeah, we'll get her some coffee, drink coffee.
Orange Jameson and ginger ale should do the trick. That's what she's drinking this evening.
It's the blood of my enemies.
The blood of her enemies.
There you go.
Love it. Oh, and if you want a new combination, Stabby, I did get some of that coffee brand coffee, blueberry, and a little bit of Sky vodka vanilla together with just a touch of cream. Delicious. Blueberry vanilla cream with a kick.
Welcome to the Alcoholics Hour.
Can you mute?
Hold on. I've been ordered to mute. I'm muting.
So I had never been east of Louisiana until I married Nick. And he took me to Florida. He took me to this awesome bar in St. Augustine called the White Lion. And the bartender was digging us so much that he comes out and he's like, here, free shots. And I'm like, what is it? I'm very careful with my booze. Like, what are you trying to give me? And it was the orange flavored Jameson. It tastes like Tang.
Nice.
It's dangerous. You don't know. You don't know that it's whiskey in your cup until your head starts feeling foggy. But it was an appropriate drink because the Bengals were playing that night. So
that works.
There you go.
Are you a sports fan, Tox?
Played it for most of my life, like in my adult life. Outside of football, I follow very little.
I'm digging this card, by the way, Nick. I figured this one speaks of me like Hellboy, so I figured you would like it too.
I did have a quick question for Tox before we move on.
Okay.
Yeah, do it.
I've been holding it and like letting JR talk, but how easy it is? How easy is it for someone to get into your game that's never played card games before?
Super easy. That's actually the reason why I wanted to make the game. Was we found, like, I believe it or not, man, like I actually kind of hate card games. Like before I got into this, because you have games like Magic where if you're a new player, you could lose within 5 minutes. There's a lot of card games where if you're new, you are constantly at a disadvantage. One of the things that is really good about this is there's a lot of what we call rubber banding mechanics. So if you fall behind, there's a lot of things in the game that will propel you forward. And we have players that are first-time players to card games, period, who will win against someone that's played the game 10 times. You can do that. And then, like, for me, I use a super scientific thing I call the girlfriend test, which is just if your chick will play this game and wants to play it again, it's a good game. A lot of times, if it's super casual.
Yeah, I can quote horror movies and Star Wars all day long, but my son pulls out his Pokemon cards and I go,
yes, correct. Yeah.
And then these two knuckleheads, they, start going, oh, Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm over here like,
yeah, that's like the weird thing is like, no, you're right. Like if you go to a Magic tournament, which like don't because it's awful, but if you ever did, you never, there's never any women there ever. And it's super telling just because they're typically on average, I'm sure there are exceptions for anybody listening that's really offended by it. Like I'm sure there are exceptions, but in reality, there's rarely exceptions. And like, it's boring. Like there's thresholds of nerdiness, right? Where you can get to this point where you're like, I really like this stuff, but this is just too much for me. And I find for a lot of people like Magic and Dungeons and Dragons and LARPing and all that stuff, for some people, it's just too much. And if you look at that demographic, it's a very tiny sliver of women that are really into it.
I always teased, I have 6 brothers.
Oh, wow.
So I always tease my brothers and I'm like, you guys all had it lucky. I started working at 14 and helping mom and you guys got to be kids.
Yeah.
So I feel like I missed out on that little cusp where, getting into that nerdy side of playing cards could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, yeah, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons. Like I get when people are making comments about it because of things like Stranger Things and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I get that reference, but I've never played it. So every time that Jared's like, oh, we got this new tabletop game, and I'm like,
yeah. No, because like the other problem too, right? So one is like interest, kind of like you mentioned, and the other big thing is time. Like you only have so much time. And that's true of, I think, universally everybody. So if you can't fundamentally learn a game in 5 to 10 minutes, most people just don't have the time or the attention span to really care whatsoever. So you really kind of have to nail that intro piece. And the game has to be complex enough that once you know how to play, there's layers, but simple enough that you actually give a shit enough to learn how to play.
So here's the dirty little secret. People talk about games more than they actually have time to play them. I have more game books for RPGs that I'll probably never have time to set a table with. Correct. Especially RPGs because they require the dungeon master and everyone wants to play, no one wants to DM, which means if you want a game, you have to be a DM, and that's a hell of a lot of work. So it's one of those things where when you have the time, you don't have the money, and when you have the money, you don't have the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I get bored at Comic-Cons.
How do you get bored at Comic-Cons? I feel like we need an intervention in a separate episode.
No, so let me explain. I don't like sitting at the table. Like for the first hour, you have my attention. I'm there. I am pushing apogee. I will sling comic books for the first hour. And then when it slows down, I'm sitting there like, what am I supposed to do? I'll start wandering around. We did Fanboy Expo in Vegas. And at one point, I got up and I was like, I'm going to go refill your flask. I'll be right back. And when I came back, I had a producer with me. And I'm like, hey, hon, I met this guy outside while I was having a smoke after I filled up your flask. Did you know he's the producer for Tiffany? You know, the singer from the 80s? I found him outside. And then I disappear again, and I come back. I'm like, she was the voice of Jessie in Toy Story.
That's awesome.
I wasn't impressed until she brought Hayden Christensen over.
So you did mention the games. It's a balance between making it simple enough for getting new people involved, but also complex enough that you can have strategies that matter, right? Like you can play checkers, but there's really not a whole lot of strategy involved in checkers.
Correct.
But chess, can sometimes be too complicated for some people, right?
Yep.
So it is a balance. How do you build that and still keep your culture inclusive enough? Because I don't know if you've dealt with like, I'll use yoga as an example because my doctor recommended it for my health. I went around to yoga studios and they were pretty snooty and snobby and they wanted you to know a foreign language that's their own little weirdo thing. I'm like, dude, I just want to get healthy.
Yeah.
There are a lot of communities that are like, oh, you're new? Ew. Right?
For sure.
How do you, in game cultures could be like that. Oh, you didn't start with edition 1? Ooh.
Right.
How do you build since you're in control of this, how do you build a culture that stays welcoming to everyone so you can continually grow it instead of exclude yourself into oblivion.
I think it's like such a cop-out statement, but like the one thing I learned early on in my career was begin with the end in mind. So if you start off knowing that you want to end there, I think a lot of games get into this headspace where they want to do a lot and too much. And I'm sure you guys have played them. I'm sure you guys have seen them. You might have even interviewed them. Like you talk to games where their game has like 30 factions and there's all this stuff going on. And the story is like, oh yeah, and another thing and another thing. And at some point, like you just got to focus on the basics. So for me, like we started off with that goal. Like our first batch of playtesters, and the first playtest we did was in person. It was in Philadelphia. I rented out a hotel conference room, and it was all people who we specifically chose who had never played a card game. That was the first thing we did. So we started off with that market of people that have not only not touched a trading card game, but not even touched a board game. And we kind of used that to really tweak. And it took a little bit to get to where we wanted to go, where it was like super accessible. And then from there, we started to kind of layer on like the secondary and tertiary things where players that were more seasoned came in. I mean, it's impossible to make a game that is perfect for everybody, but you'd be surprised how much of the Venn diagram you can really hit when you build things properly.
Yeah, it seems like you built like the perfect beta testers. People that have never played anything like that.
Exactly.
Like Hellboy.
Yeah, we have a lot of inspiration. This card's super cool. So Siege of Solo, this was actually a contest. So in our Discord, we actually run contests monthly where members can kind of participate. It might be like name this card. It might be some sort of activity challenge. And this is one of our members. His name is Solo. And we let him kind of build this with the artist team. So he picked out the character, what he wanted it to look like, what he wanted it to feel like. So there is some Hellboy inspiration in this for sure. But yeah, this one came out awesome.
Is his first name Han?
No, I wish. I'm sure he wishes.
Han Gruber.
Yeah.
Do you have a voice in mind for him, for Solo?
No. You know, it's funny because like I haven't talked about it at all yet, but we're actually building a full online game that will be this physical game in an online space for mobile and online and browser based and digital packs and digital cards and stuff. And so in that we're in early phases of building out like animations for all the characters and stuff.
Right.
And so now most of the characters won't really have voices. I kind of like the approach that games like Zelda take where the main characters don't speak because as a player, it's your own voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's certain things though, like just that's how I do comic books. It's like I'll have a voice in mind for a certain look of a character, you know,
exactly.
Dark and kind of like I bring my voice down a couple of octaves and just it's almost growling because he looks like a demon. So that I'm reading the script that you have on there, the text, and I'm like, that voice is just playing in my head. I'm probably going to have nightmares, but whatever.
Kinem is awesome. So these guys, so in the game, it's called Mischief and Malice because there's 2 decks. So you as a player, you have your own Malice deck that you build. And then in between all of the players, we have the Mischief deck. And the Mischief deck contains 2 types of cards. One is a chance card. The other type are what we call malignants. And so the one on the screen here, Kinem, is an example of a malignant. And these are similar to what we would call like a boss card. So in the game, you're competing against your opponents. When a Mischief card is pulled, which there's a few different triggers in the game to allow it to happen, and one of these guys are pulled onto the field, you can no longer attack each other, and now both players or all 4 players start attacking the malignant. And whoever is the one that's responsible for taking, because that health in the top right-hand corner of 28, on our play mats, we actually have health markers, so we track that. Whoever's the one that's responsible for getting that down to 0 wins that round.
He reminds me of Art the Clown mixed with Dead Silence.
It's funny you mentioned Art. That's the first collaboration that we are working on is with the Terrifier guys to get Art the Clown on a Malignant card. Terrifier is my favorite modern horror movie by far, the whole franchise. Even though the second one was like infinitely longer than it ever needed to be, I still love it. I could watch it to death.
I wonder how they're going to treat 3 though. That's coming out.
I think they're probably going to end up doing what they did with 2 and continue like the real storyline. I kind of liked how 1 was just random chaos, but
yeah,
you know, I'm in for it.
And so All Hallows Eve, that was my introduction to Art, which I think is a lot of people's.
This is some definite Joker vibes. I'm trying to get it centered as much as I can, but this banner you had.
Mm-hmm.
What is the story of this art figure right here? It looks like
that is Mischief. That is one of our mascots of the game. That is our primary mascot. And so in that world of Malignance, they're basically things that she has created. So Mischief, we haven't revealed all of our lore yet because we're actually working on a comic series. So all the cards have lore written on them, but we're working on a comic series that we're going to release at the same time. So I've been really strategic about how much we get out there. But Mischief is basically the creator of where the malignancies dwell. And malignancies are basically cancerous that have fallen off of her and kind of spread their malice.
Nice. I was pulling only because of that. I pulled only from your public released stuff, so that way we didn't show anything you didn't want.
Yeah,
because I know you've given me some back end peeks at some of the cool art that's coming. Yeah. I didn't want to accidentally share that, but I'm still digging it. Like I said, I'm getting like, I don't know, if Marilyn Manson and Pokemon had a love style, this game would be it.
Yeah, a lot of people refer to it as like a mix of like Pokemon meets Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah, like that. And then like the cards we're looking at here, these are some of the cards that are in your Malice deck. And so like conceptually, the art piece of this is really interesting too. Like our whole art process is pretty unique to us because a lot of card games, what they do is they subcontract art. So I'll use like MetaZoo as an example. They pay an artist X amount of dollars for a character, for a card. And then that artist kind of goes away and they do that. So in a set for most games, you have, 100 plus artists. And so here, we actually have a team of 4 people, myself included, that handles all of the art for the entire thing. And so you get a lot more consistency that way. And then we have people that kind of specialize in more like 3D style things and things that are more horror based.
I dig the art, but Nick is a professional artist as well, so I'm going to let him ask.
Oh, sick. We use that term loosely.
Dude, you're drawing for Marvel. You qualify now. Like, you don't have any imposter syndrome. Get over it.
No, it keeps me humble so I don't screw it up when they give me assignments.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I try. I mean, it only took me 45 years, but who's counting?
Abby's going to love this card right here because we know she loves clowns.
Oh, she has a love-hate relationship with clowns, especially when I showed her Terrifier. She's like, I love you and I hate you at the same time, and I'm probably going to cut you in half like Art did that woman hanging upside down. I'm like, awesome.
Clowns. I don't know what it is about. I don't know what it is about clowns. It's like that's like the one thing someone in the room will always have an issue with is clowns. So you have to include them.
I think it's Gacy. I think it's the legacy of Gacy. I think it's because they're meant to be like pure jovial type entities. I guess it's a person in makeup that's designed. Like my dad was a professional bull rider growing up.
Okay,
so I dealt with clowns all the damn time. I have no fear of him because I saw the man behind the makeup.
Sure.
And I also watched him take a bull hit like nothing. And so I don't know. I think the mystery with clowns is I think it has a lot to do with Gacy, the serial killer.
There's a lot that goes into the origin of clowns. I don't know if you've ever heard any of those stories or not, but
yeah, there's some lore behind there.
Like tribal stuff where basically you would have tribes that after like during war times, they would, take faces off of the fallen and basically wear them. And when that happens, you have excess blood flow to the nose, which is why the nose turns red, mouth turns red. And so it's very dark, but I've always loved clowns. So
yeah, I have no problem with clowns. I think they're fun.
Agreed.
I think, I've never dressed up as one, but that time is probably coming because I'm tired of being. I'm tired of putting on the stormtrooper armor because that is the hottest shit I've ever worn in my life.
Oh, I can imagine, man.
So I don't know. For me, I think clown. I always think bozo, and then I think bozo. You think like the whipped cream pie to the face, and the other Spunkmeyer cookies he was always giving out, and Schwinn bicycles. I don't know if Spunkmeyer cookies and Schwinn bicycles still exist, but
they are still a thing, believe it or not. Yeah.
Bozo the clown finally retired after like 30 something years and 3 different people behind the paint. But I don't know. So for me, clowns were always fun memories with my sister sitting there on Saturday morning, watching people take a pie to the face.
Oh yeah. Which is, I'm not going to say it's a family show.
Yeah, try not to, Nick. Yeah. So I'm really digging the art. So do you have different artists assigned to like this is kind of Lotus Blossom energy, and I'm all for it.
It's very dreamscape.
Yeah.
It's
so
inviting, alluring.
So it's funny you use the word dreamscape because we refer to places in the game as dreams. That kind of fit into the story for dreamscapes, and even the characters, the different art styles. We have characters that play into different periods of time. So there are characters in the game that have multiple cards. We have past versions and future versions, and then primal versions as well.
Well, and from the cards that we've seen, there's like you said, there's different art styles. Like this is very anime.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other ones are very Sandman. They're very Dark Universe stuff, which I enjoy the hell out of that. I wish I could do that. It's outside of my purview. I mean, I guess if I practice, maybe, but I really like. What other art styles do you have that you're using on these decks? Like, is there like an American comic book style, or is it?
I would say the Malignants especially are very like these guys are the closest to like comic book. I would say almost Hellboy-esque type.
That is Swamp Thing vibes, right? 100%.
There. Yeah, we do a lot. So all the Malignants are black and white with one accent color. Typically, that's kind of the internal guidelines. And then creatures, there's 4 different styles we use. There's line art. There's watercolor, which watercolor is probably the biggest in the set. And then we do like actual blender models, like 3D, pseudo 3D. And then we kind of have hybrid models, like you just saw with like Elegy of Eden, that are more like environmental looking, that kind of go all over the place.
Okay. So we've got some of the different art styles. You mentioned a little bit that this game is also on Steam. And wow, hold on real quick. We were supposed to do a commercial, but we're just going to have him be the sponsor because he agreed to do that. So I'll mark the time real quick as of now. And if you were on the audio platform, welcome back. And if not, you were here the whole time. So with that being said, thank you for sponsoring this episode. And we're just going to keep talking because this is too much fun. You mentioned that this is already on Steam. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How that's different?
Yeah. So what we used it initially for play testing, but there's an application on Steam called Tabletop Simulator that we have the entire game playable on. So the whole first season, which is 300 cards total, we have pre-constructed decks. So in our Discord, if you go to mischiefandmalice.com, there's links to everything, but the primary one we use is Discord just to kind of track all the sessions. We run games every night from 5 o'clock till 3 in the morning Eastern time, and staff sponsored and staff there. So yeah, the full game's playable, and that's been the number one way for me to actually stay sane while developing the game. And then we just loved it so much as a team that we started using it just to let people play the game once we were well done with the play testing phase. So the one other thing I will say too is Tabletop Sim is like $20 retail. I got a really good relationship with some of the Steam people there, so we actually have a really good discount on that. And for most people that come into our server and play, they're getting it for free. So
okay, so do you just not sleep if you're playing games that long, or do you have a big enough staff?
Luckily, what is sleep? I will tell you, I don't sleep, man. I'm like 3 or 4 hours a night, if that, most of the night. It's really awful for you, but that's okay. But no, like my team, we're pretty spread out. We've got people in, West Coast, East Coast. We got people in Central. Only time zone I actually follow is East Coast because that's the only real one to me. But Absolutely. The West Coast people out there, pretend. But no, I have a great team, awesome team, and we have people that are just dedicated to like player experience, and it really pays off. And because I would say our average player is a it's never just one game. We typically have people come back and play like 5+ times.
Nice. So do you know what the Steam version is going to run for people once it launches officially for real? And it's
so what'll happen is, it's going to stay free right now. It'll stay free. So the Kickstarter is in February. It should be in everybody's hands in May, like physically. And then we're building our own entire ecosystem that is browser-based, mobile compatible, iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, everything. That'll be its own separate thing. So up until that launches, it'll be completely available on Tabletop Sim for free through our Discord. That won't be changing. And then when you buy a physical pack, it comes with a code for a digital pack. So right now you have access to everything, but when we start doing online tournaments, you'll be able to actually have like digital booster packs with your own cards and your own decks that you can build and you can trade and sell and all that stuff digitally as well.
That's pretty cool.
I'm getting like Pokemon meets Cthulhu vibes with this image right now.
Yeah.
That's like some cool. Five Nights at Freddy type stuff.
Yeah,
man.
this is actually one of mine that I did. This is actually one of the cards I did the art on, and one of the characters I created, Octu. And he actually has a few different forms. We actually have an exclusive version of him. I'll be at Los Angeles Comic-Con in December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We actually have a special holographic version of an alternate art version of this card with him on it. That'll be exclusive to that convention. But he's one of my favorite characters in the game. He's actually very cool. Obviously he has a little bit more than 8. So
when you buy the game, are you trading cards? Sometimes you can buy just one, or are you insisting that they buy them as a pack?
So the way it works, I think for most people, especially new, so like we have our starter decks coming out in December, and those will have 2 pre-constructed decks. That has everything you would need for 2 players to play. It has decks, it has the Mischief deck, all the mats, tokens, all that stuff. Typically, people start off with the pre-constructed decks of like, hey, here are my 40 cards, and then in trading card games, you would normally buy, like in our Kickstarters, all of our booster packs and booster boxes. And that's basically like an expansion to the pre-constructed stuff. But most players, we find, want to start off with a deck that's pre-built, especially if they're new to the game. They don't know the rules of how to build the deck.
Okay, so the next question would be, you did mention that you were going to be doing comics, which Nick's ears perked up. I could see it underneath his headphones because he's a comic guy. So what all mediums do you think you want to expand the lore in? Because that's obviously going to be separate from the game itself, right?
Yeah. So one thing about me is like I'm really big into ciphers. So I'm really big into puzzles. In the cards right now, I don't think anybody actually knows this yet. In the cards right now, built into the lore, there's actually a giant cipher that spreads across most of the cards. And so we wanted to incorporate that early on. So when players have the cards, they actually need certain cards to be able to actually solve the puzzle. And then we want to kind of do a similar thing where we have certain triggers that will unlock digital comics online. And then from there, be able to actually redeem physical comics. So that's kind of what the platform looks like right now. That kind of feeds into the story.
Are any of the ciphers going to be put into the comics for future content?
100%.
Yeah. Oh God! Stop! I can only get so aroused.
Yeah, something about. So do I, dude. I'm like something about just something that's. I'm a big fan of hiding in plain sight. So we have cards right now that literally have text that's just hidden in the background that people don't see or haven't seen.
So you really got to pay attention when you're reading these things
and not be colorblind, apparently.
Yeah, I know. I'll get canceled for that, I guess. For not accommodating colorblindness, but yeah,
as a colorblind person, you get a pass. I give it to you. You get the colorblind pass today.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm gonna record that. I'm gonna keep that recording in my pocket just so you know for the future.
That's right. That's hard to be used later.
He gives you a pass.
That's all right. I'll take it.
And so you mentioned obviously you're going to do comic books that are going to tell the story. Are you planning on expanding this universe? Because obviously you're doing lots of businesses because you just have like business ADHD and like no sleep, so it works for you. At a certain point in time, obviously you might want to focus down. So is there plans for like, I don't know, novels in the worlds of Mischief and Malice or tabletop games where, you got little like miniatures kind of thing or anything 100%. Like that?
Yeah. So like our 3-year strategy there is mostly, for me, it's about kind of game first, story second, and then add-ons third. So the game is the most important part of obviously where I've spent most of my time. And then comic series is the secondary thing from there. Online puzzles that integrate between the comics and the cards. And then we've already started working on our plush lines and our figure lines. So we're doing limited run drops. So like the first character we're doing, there's 50 of them. And of the 55 are glow in the dark. I'm a big fan of drop content, not like something that sits in stock 24/7, but something that you can put out there that's limited edition. And everything we release will also come with a card. So even the comic, when you get a comic, there'll be an exclusive card that you could only get in that comic, or you could only get with that figure. And that way there's some utility there for what you're actually buying. It's not like you just have that ties back into the game at all times.
That's some 90s level stuff, comic book wise. I'm a big fan of that. So I really
same,
like what
man.
you're doing there.
Same. Like for me, like at conventions, we've been doing a ton of conventions the last few months. What I'm always happy about is people come to the booth and they don't go like, I really like this card. They say, I really like this character. And that's a big distinction because you can take a character and do a lot with that, whether it be in a comic or future cards. But like Magic is a good example. And this is not to like, trash Magic, but I'm not a Magic guy. So I guess I'll trash it a little bit. But like they release so many cards that you don't really build rapport with any characters. And so it's a lot tougher to really like expand that universe without kind of adopting other ones. So
love cards.
Yeah, nice.
Love cards.
Nice.
So with the card games, is there any, like when we looked at the decks, like when we showed pictures of your convention playtest, there are obviously like little tokens and a mat. Does the mat come separate, like that you were using on the table? Do you need that? Is that just
so it's a little unique for us because I really encourage the mat usage. So it's included in almost everything you buy for us, which is rare. So if you buy a booster box, it's going to come with laminated mats. If you're buying a starter kit, it comes with a mat. If you're buying starter decks, it comes with a mat. All that. The reason that is our mats, and I don't know if you have that picture of that, you can kind of see them. We have health trackers built into the mat, which is actually super unique. I've never seen another game do it.
That's not the mat. I'm going to it, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah. If you look, if you look and you zoom in on those three characters, you'll see there's numbers that surround them. So the max health of a character is 20. So instead of having to use like die or write things down,
the beads.
Yep. You can use sliders. Yeah, we used beads because somebody, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but actually myself forgot the actual sliders for that convention. But we use the playmats to track a lot of stuff. And that saves people from having to carry around die. But we do also have the option to use D20s. And then the last option, one I kind of like, but a lot of players don't, is using a companion app that we built that also tracks all of the data too. So if you're someone that wants to like travel light, just bring a deck with you. You don't need all of that, but we definitely encourage it.
So, I mean, given how many businesses you have and how little you sleep, I imagine you live on things like Google Calendar. So that's probably second nature for you.
Yeah.
Well, it is encouraging to know, because that's one of the things. Sometimes with these board games, you lose one piece and you can't play the game anymore, right? Showing that you can use the slider can be replaced with little, kids' beads, essentially, the thick plastic ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just shows, you don't need as much to play. Everything else is just fun perks for aesthetics or whatever.
Exactly.
I mean, really, just a bead you can get at a craft store for, I don't know, 10 cents a piece or whatever they're going for. You can tell I've never been to a craft store, but whatever those beads go for, I mean, it's your game isn't dead just because you lost whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
I need Bluefy as a Stabby.
Which one?
Bluefy.
Bluefy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bluefy is actually so I have a weird home life, but I have a live-in wife and a live-in girlfriend, and Bluefy is for my wife. Yeah, thank you. All right, so Bluefy is for my wife. That's actually her character, and then you had her up before. Bean is my girlfriend's character.
So you're living the dream, and I'm going to show Bean, but I think you could definitely crochet and do like a homemade.
Yeah.
Oh, Amy.
I did the Bluefy thing because my wife actually is a huge knitter, like massive knitter. It's very weird, actually. She knits like all the time. When I met her, our first date, I walked up and she was like crocheting something. It was very weird. I don't know why.
Did you make a comment about like, are you a reincarnated 80-year-old woman?
Dude, of course I did. I'm like, how old are you? Because your profile.
Were you born in 1932? Is your original name Edna? What's going on?
She was into it, man. So it was like a no-brainer for me. Like when it came time to make a character, I have characters for my kids in the game. That's kind of the fun part about having a game is like you can kind of immortalize certain people that you want to, which is kind of cool.
Especially if you got family members or fans that were close to you that because that happens. Like I've had a couple of readers that were with me in the beginning when I started writing that sadly passed away, and I've talked to their widows, and you can kind of make that part of the lore or whatever, write them in. It's kind of a way to honor your friends. It's cool that you could do that. So hold on.
For sure.
Oh, is this your character? Let me put you on solo real quick. Is this your character in his universe?
Yes, this is Regent. She has the shaved side of the head and the piercings. He did the same thing for me.
Oh shit!
Look at that.
So he was telling me the other day that one of his high school girlfriends, something like.
Oh yeah, she totally called me out when I first started doing comics in 2011, 2012.
Yeah,
I was still in contact with her, and I told her, I'm like, hey, I'm finally making that comic book, and I forgot about a deal she made with me at our 8th grade graduation party. She was going to trade me a kiss to be a character in my comic.
Okay.
And then I had to pay up. And I was like, I'm trying to remember if it was that good a kiss. I mean, are you going to be a supporting character? Am I just going to kill you off?
I mean, look, man, your word's your word. I would have done the same thing. You got to follow through.
I was like, yeah, I'm a man of my word. So I made her a major supporting character, and then I killed her off.
That's honestly the dream scenario, man. That's the win-win.
He told me.
It's like I'm a big fan of the Wishmaster series from the 90s. So it's like you get your wish, but there's a twist, and it's not going to go well. Correct. So I'm like, you're going to get your wish, and then I'm going to kill you in the most horrific way possible.
That's awesome.
It's like the old school genie in D&D. They always twist your wish.
Yeah, the djinn. Yeah.
The djinn, yeah. So
we were laying in bed the other night, and he goes, babe, she was a receptionist. Your regent. Calm down.
So
made you a superhero. Come on.
So you mentioned that you've got your wife and your girlfriend's part of the company. Is it that just the three of you that is Mischief and Malice, or do you have a larger team that you work with?
No, I have a massive team. We have a team of about 20 people total.
That is massive.
A lot of people. Okay.
Yeah, because we're working. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. So we have people that run socials. We have people that run marketing. We have people that are working on product development. I've got the art team. And then we've got a lot of people that oversee player experience, do rule drafting, copywriting. Like there's a lot that goes into it just because of how much you're touching all at once. I kind of do everything, and then I kind of lost my mind. So I just had to start adding people in.
Yeah, that's something you quickly learn. You can't be all things to all people in a business. You have to have minions.
Yeah, because cloning technology is not where we need it to be. Otherwise,
I wish it was.
I'd have 10 comic books out a month if I had like 10 of me.
Yeah, all day long, man. I wish I had more time. I wish I could just create time.
So you'll get a kick out of this, Nick. So before I started bugging you about all the workout questions I've been asking, I was asking Tox, but then he went and got a job making this comic thing, and he had no time for the rest of us peons. But that's how I knew you two would get along. Bonding through lifting.
We both lift heavy things and put them back down, and then do creative shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait.
There's not that many of us, actually.
I've heard his Arnold voice. Can you do an Arnold voice? I think it's required when you lift.
Dude, I cannot. I cannot. I am so bad at impressions.
Tox, what the hell is wrong with you?
That's good, dude. That's actually good, man.
Come on. Well, I did have the lovely experience of smoking cigars with him when he was the governor of California in his smoking tent in the middle of the Capitol.
That's sick.
No,
that's wrong. He was the gummy bear.
The gummy bear?
Jesus
Christ, what the hell are you talking about, woman? You're talking context here. You're talking about gummy bears.
So
come on, do it.
You've talked about merchandising. One of the things I've seen a lot of indie content creators, be it books, comics, games, card games now, have been creating STL files that they sell for their fans.
Whoa, back up. Explain to the listeners, and myself included, what the hell is an STL file?
The STL file is what you need to print on a 3D printer so you can make your stuff. So when you use your 3D,
I should know that I have a 3D printer.
You do, so I thought you did. But so if you want to print something on a 3D printer, you need an STL file. You have a lot of programs you can go to make the STL file. I know
3D Studio Max, Blender,
AutoCAD can do it.
AutoCAD, yeah.
But are you planning on doing any of that for your fans, that if they wanted little tokens of their favorite characters?
So we have STL files because that's kind of how we prototype. Like I'm making a 3D printing. I've got a resin one and 2 FDM ones. And so a lot of my early stuff, we went through the process of self-prototyping. It's a lot cheaper that way. We've talked about it. We tend to lean on the side of keeping things more limited because it tends to just do better for the game overall. Like, so one of the things I learned early on, so we used to give out prototype cards, and my first batch of cards I ever printed for this game, I look at today and I'm like mortified by them. They're awful looking. But the problem is, if somebody has one, and it's happened in our Discord, someone posts a picture of it, someone else doesn't realize that it's a prototype. And so they look at it and they go, wow, this game looks like shit. And it does, if that's what you're basing your perception on. So the problem with STL files is anybody can print it. Anybody can give you a false representation of your brand. And then someone else sees it and that's their introduction. And they're like, okay, the characters look awful. Because on an STL file, if their printer's not tuned, they use weird color filament, and you're like, what the hell is this? So my initial reaction is probably to say no from a branding standpoint.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I got like 5 issues of a comic that when I was first starting out, and I look back at them now and I'm like, I'm never releasing these again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though the story was solid, my artwork was not there yet. So like I have 2 options. I put that in the vault like Disney does, and I'll release it 100 years later, or I redraw the whole damn thing.
Or
100%.
hear me out. People like to follow progressions in careers. You leave them, move on, draw the next thing. And then as you get better, people will like, wow, he's gotten a lot better. And you move on. But if you spend forever reinventing the wheel, you'll never make new stuff. You'll always be redrawing the same dang book.
So some of those pieces are in my portfolio, and that's kind of what started me getting some of these higher level gigs, is because I did show my progression.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool, I'm going to roll with it. But we're here to talk about Tox and his awesome
Absolutely.
shit.
So my question is, if you're not going to sell the STL files, but you do make them, is there any plan in the future, do you think, for merchandising those through a company that, could reputably print them? And I don't know if these companies exist, but I would assume so, that they can print them with some level of consistency that would meet your branding standards?
Honestly, probably not. What we're doing instead is we're working with the same plant we're using to manufacture the game is working on figurines for us. So like
Nice.
we design the models, and then we're doing like limited runs. Each character, we're doing a set of 10 total characters. Each one has 50 made. There's only 50 of those characters, and each one comes with a card. So the cards are limited, and they're serialized too, like 1 out of 50, 2 out of 50, 3 out of 50, both the box and the character. We've had a lot of luck with that model. Like we got into pins. Like we have a few characters that we've done pins of now that have done really well. So I think for us, like I'd rather just keep the quality control that much higher. And you tend to find that when you're doing like die cast type, like injection molded stuff is so much better than anything you could 3D print. Even resin. Like I have a resin printer, quality is awesome. It doesn't touch anything that's like injection molded.
I had some injection mold Star Wars figures for a tabletop game, better than any of the plastic shit that I've seen.
100%, man.
And they're like 20 years old.
That's the other thing too, is from like a durability standpoint. They never break, they never age, they don't yellow, they don't warp. Yeah.
Sometimes I just gaze at them and have little mini adventures in my head, like when I was 8.
Playing little battles out.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about metal figures and the figurines in general, is there any plans to, hopefully not as bad as D&D did, but to make a board game that's like a proper board game?
Yeah. We actually I have a working prototype right now of a board game that is actually fully playable with the cards from the card game, like 100%. So what will likely happen down the line is we would create play mats that the reverse side of it is an actual full board game. And then you would choose characters from your cards that you currently own. And so those would be like your main characters in the game. And then there would be a separate deck you would have that would play with it, but everything that you currently have would work interoperably with it, like with the actual board game concept. I originally wanted to do both at the same time, and I learned through feedback from people that it was just too much to learn. So we wanted to do card game first, and then we're going to circle back to the board game piece.
I like the, that's awesome. Because I'm kind of excited. Like, I want to play the card game, but I also want to play the board game part.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you have a lot of people interested in that too. When you get to that point, when you're ready to do
for
that.
sure. Yeah. It's that's like, especially people like there's people, you kind of rate them like 1 through 10. Like a lot of people that are brand new, they're still like 4s or 5s, but you have people that are just 1s where card games are just not interesting, but board games are. Like they can play Chutes and Ladders and Sorry and Monopoly all day long, but you give them like a card game and it just doesn't connect.
So of board games, is there any plans to take the board game? Because I mean, I've seen Monopoly on Steam. Is there any plan to take the board game part to Steam?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Honestly, dude, like the one thing at conventions, especially in the modern era, people just want a digitized version of whatever you're doing. They want to lay in bed and play it on their phone. So it would be dumb for me to not. Anything that we do should be available in some form of a digital medium, including the comics. Like anything you do like that, you want to have self-contained. Like we have a companion app, but in that over time, you'll have like a card database, a collection tracker. You'll have all the comics. Your whole collection should be all kind of integrated into one place.
When you get to that point, is it all going to be on the same app, or are there going to be different apps for certain aspects of the game and comics and things like that?
So 2 apps, basically one would be like a collection tracker, tracking like what cards you have. And then also like a companion app that tracks like your health if you don't want to use the playmats. And then the other one is the whole digital like marketplace where you're playing other players. You guys can trade cards. When you buy a physical pack, you can buy a digital pack, or you can buy a digital pack on your own, and then you can build things. So right now it's 1. It's going to have to evolve into 2 just because that one is so complex, and there's a whole development team behind that and everything. Yeah.
So is there any
no, go ahead, JR.
So if you let's say you buy the physical deck and you've got whatever cards, is there any plan to be able to make your digital deck match what you physically own, or is it separately random?
So the only company I've seen really be able to do that doesn't even do it anymore. Like Magic doesn't do it. Nobody does it. Pokemon has come the closest, and they stopped doing it. Where if I make a pack, like we don't know what's in the packs. The way that they're randomized is a whole process that I've been walked through about 100,000 times now from different manufacturers. But like when they produce a pack, they don't know what's in that pack. They know the ratios and the quantities. So for you to be able to know that and then pair that with a digital version is literally impossible. You would have to own your own plant to do it. So instead, what we do is if you buy a pack, you will get a digital version of that same pack, but it will be a different mix of cards. It's the only way you could do it where people can get cards for free. It's the only way. Like Magic, you have to just buy all your packs digitally. You're not getting really anything. So Pokemon kind of came the closest, but yeah, we looked into it. I would have loved to do it. We even talked about doing QR codes on the cards that are unique. The problem there is you will run out of sequences really quick because every card becomes a unique one of one. They're serialized that way.
So obviously you're doing some stuff for free right now because you're trying to build the community to build the game. And you know, whether you're selling comics or you're selling books or, you know, music, in the beginning, a lot of content is given away for free to build fans. At some point in time, you're going to have to start selling them, or you're going to, you know, need to get a day job at McDonald's or something. And, you know, your family might not like that. So how much longer, because keep in mind, this will be airing the Wednesday before Black Friday. So first, what sales are you doing? And second, when do you suspect you'll roll over to your monetization phase if people want to get in early?
Yeah, so the Kickstarter will be the initial first push into that. I will say, there's a lot of upfront investment needed. There's a lot of reason for that, though. Like your game, it's unlike anything else. You have to build a community first to have a game be worth playing. Because if somebody looks into it and you don't have people playing, it is a pointless endeavor. Because I know for me, like I wouldn't want to play a game that I know a year from now won't exist. And a lot of card games don't make it past the first year. We watch it all the time. We've done enough market research to see it. The starter decks are the first cards that we're selling, and that'll be the second week of December. The day that this airs, we're actually going to be launching our Shopify store. So that'll be available right then and there with pre-orders for the rest of Thanksgiving week for that starter deck. So the whole game will be playable. Playmats, everything you saw in this picture from the convention. 2 pre-constructed decks, the Mischief deck, all the tokens, all the playmats for $40. And that'll come out the second week of December.
That's not bad. That's a reasonable price point.
Yeah, we wanted to get aggressive for the same reason. We really just want this in people's hands. Like we've been going around to obviously conventions, and then a big part of that for me has been in card games, like local game stores. They call them LGSs are the biggest thing. Everyone's local comic shop. That is where tournaments are held. That's where we really want this game to thrive more than I care about any retail channel. That's been our big focus. And so same thing there. Like we reserved 100 units of those starter kits just to give to LGSs, just to kind of get them like in the door as well. Yeah.
Every LGS or local comic book store I go into has a section that's also an LGS. So the two types are married to each other. So most people that read comics or most people that play card games.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of overlap in those two worlds, I've noticed for sure.
No, it's very smart that you're taking that approach of appealing to both types. So, it's going to be successful. I can feel it because I'm
we're excited. Like I was always told, early on I was trying to figure out like what the hell I was doing. And people always told me when you're playtesting, you're done or close to done when people end the playtest and they go, okay, like where do I buy it? Because your first, few months, especially the playtest is just like, okay, well, that was a thing. Like I experienced that. It's kind of how it sucks. And then from there you make tweaks. And then, these days, like especially at conventions, it's constantly like, where can I buy it? Like right now? And the answer right now is no. Like you got to wait a few weeks. And so I'm really excited. We've got from January through the end of March, we've got 15 conventions booked. So we're
well, and that's good. That's a testament to your product.
Yeah.
So anybody that's going to come by and you're getting free not exactly free market research, but you're getting good market research there.
Oh, you are.
At your tables.
Yeah.
Man, you're a freaking genius.
I appreciate that, man.
That's pretty cool shit, man. I've been doing con circuits for years, so rarely do I see that where you get to walk around and someone draws you in like, hey man, play this card game. And like most people don't do that.
No,
so
I've been surprised. No, you're right. I've been surprised because like my first convention was San Diego Comic-Con this last year. And I was really surprised by the lack of like indie space there. It was mostly established brands, and it was interesting. And then even the smaller ones we've done, you're dead on. Like you really don't see people like doing demos very often.
Yeah, usually they just sit there and they're on their phones, and whoever shows up, like that's a big no in cons, whether you're doing comics, cards, or any other type of medium that you're selling your stuff. You got to be up there and kind of like doing the old carnival voice.
You do. Wrangler. No, I mean you are your own brand all the time.
Exactly.
So
and you got to represent it the best way you can. And right now, it seems like you got great representation. You got a solid team behind you.
Yeah, for sure.
To make these things happen. So when you go to these cons, how much of the overall team are you bringing with you?
So I've been experimenting with that. I did a Twin Cities Con in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago, and it was just me and one other person. And that was rough because that was a big convention. It was 3 days, and Saturday of that weekend, we did not move. Like we couldn't get away from the booth. Not one of us at all. So I think 3 to 4 is the ideal number most of the time because we're doing play sessions. I'm answering questions. Right. But historically 3 to 4. We were in Baltimore this past weekend with 3, and that was like really good. So it depends. LA, we're gonna have 5 because there's 130,000 people there. That's a bigger one. And then in Boston, we're gonna have like 10 because we're sponsoring that event in Boston, which is December 3rd. And so we're doing like tournaments and play tests. We'll have the starter decks there and all that cool stuff. So that'll be a much bigger one. But I find like 2 is a little rough. 3 is kind of like the ideal number for small, and then kind of goes up to like 5 or 6.
Yeah, so you can handle crowds and questions and things like that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of questions that come in, and people, especially in the card areas, like they want to hold the card, they want to play the game, they want to touch it, they don't want to just look at it and talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to mute.
Okay.
I have a question. So, various convention games have unique requirements for judges. What goes into your tournament judging?
So that's actually a good question because we just started talking about that because we haven't done any in-person tournaments yet. We do a lot of oversight, and my team right now is primarily overseeing everything digitally. The good news is, so our game has a few different formats. One of them is extended, which is like the one I play the most, but that's a long game. That's like 1.5 hours. Our tournament version is 25 to 30 minutes. And so from our judging standpoint, we have really like clear-cut guidelines. It's a very easy game to play because the win conditions, there's only 2 ways to win the game. One is to get what we call relics. There's 4 you have to get. And then the first player that does that wins. And the other way is your opponent runs out of cards. So it's pretty easy. And in terms of the documentation, like we have a full database. For people listening, you can go to wiki.mischiefandmalice.com and see the entire rules. And it's very clear cut and laid out. So we made it really easy for our judges. And then what happens is we have a website launching. That's what we call our play network, where we track leaderboards and stats. So when you play the game, We can track who wins, what decks were they using, what cards were they using, but you can sign up to be a judge. And when you do that, we actually have an onboarding process. Like from our team, we get on a video call, we go through the rules, you're certified. We actually send you like a judge card and this whole thing. And then you're usually assigned to like an LGS or an online center.
Okay.
So how are you going to, okay, you got a question, Nick?
Stabby does.
I was going to say, you said the tournament games are usually about 25 minutes, and then your long game is like an hour and something minutes. So what's just an average game? Like the time frame of just an average game? Not tournament, not long, just...
I would say the first time someone plays it, it's usually about 45 minutes to an hour because of the questions and the setup and this. Once you know how to play the game, half an hour.
Okay.
So you mentioned the training of the judges. I asked that, when we were Stabby and I were putting together questions. I know that Magic the Gathering, for instance, because that's the only one in Pokemon, but they don't have as many tournaments that I know of, like I hear about for Magic. They have a whole onboarding process for their judges. They get certified, their judges. Yes. They get certified judges at various local Magics or local stores. And they sometimes have issues when they don't properly vet the judges who then get around kids that want to play the game. And I know you're family oriented. So how do you ensure that you've got enough judges out there while protecting families? Because you've branded yourself, just because you and I have talked offline, as being family friendly business. And you go out of where, even with your art, even the scary stuff isn't graphically so.
No. So my background career wise, I ran, doesn't matter what retailer, but I ran the loss prevention department for a large retailer. So very familiar with background checks. That's an important part of the process, because you're right. Especially when you get into the LGS scene, you are always opening yourself up to younger components. And our game, from a rating standpoint, is going to end up getting probably 8 and up as a rating. That's what we're shooting for, but it's probably going to be a little bit higher than that. But we fully expect, even if the rating's higher than that, that 8 is kind of the base where we think players could easily play the game, because the game is accessible. We actually have characters that are kind of designed like for younger players in that first set. So no, it's a huge thing. We talk about it all the time. It's something I think about because I've got 3 kids under 4. So it's something that's on my mind.
Okay.
That's good.
So while you don't have the answers just yet, because you're developing, you definitely are going forward with that in mind. Because I know 100%. Magic, they built their judging and their rule set when they first started, and they never updated it for the modern world, and they got caught kind of flat-footed, and they didn't know what to do. And it for stuff that wasn't their fault, they got egg on their face. And nowadays, businesses just have to think about that.
The hard part is, so most judge positions are volunteer positions,
right?
So you have to balance the incentive there, and you have to say, like any volunteer position, you immediately eliminate a giant pool of people who would do it if it was a monetary game. So one of the things we're doing, so not only for judges, but also just for people in the community, is if you work for an LGS or you're a judge that is affiliated with an LGS, anytime that game store orders product, you're getting commission off of it permanently. Okay. Even in our current group right now, because most of those roles make sense to be volunteer, because realistically, you're going to judge like maybe a game a month. So it's hard to quantify on like a contractor basis, but you want something to be there. So even right now, like if you're in our Discord and you say to me, I'm going to go to this LGS and I want to pitch the game, like we send you a press kit, all of that. If you secure that, and that no matter what that LGS orders, 1 case, 100 cases, you're getting a permanent fixed commission off of that initial order, and then perpetually. Because I've been, listen, before we started this, like I've been in a ton of other communities, and they kind of just hope that their player base talks about the game, but people are financially driven. So you need to incentivize that.
Okay. Absolutely. So you've turned them into your evangelical proponents, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even, it's funny too, because we just started building out like not the network of people, but the system to track it, and the system to track the orders and all that good stuff. But yeah, like my background is retail, both on the loss prevention side, analytics side, and then sales side. So it's a huge component. And again, if you want to launch a company right, you only have like one chance to really do that. And so I think casting as wide of a net as you possibly can, and having people really passionate about it, but then also like, doing well at the same time, I think is really important to have.
Yeah.
So speaking of monetary motivation, at some point, do you expect that your tournaments are going to get big enough there'll be prizes for the winners, other than bragging rights?
For sure. Our first tournament is going to have cash prizes. We're doing an online tournament in December. I haven't even announced it yet. And that's going to have a pretty large cash prize to it, plus a custom card made just for them. Oh, so you can do two things. Like people really like that too. I've noticed, and I would, them being able to have like artistic direction over a card, have a card made after them or their kids or something like that. But yeah, no, monetarily, like you have to. So there's a game out there called MetaZoo. They're a newer card game. They are struggling to get people to play their game. So they had a tournament where they offered a $50,000 cash prize, and they could not fill the tournament. So I say that just because like it's not everything. It's definitely a component, but it just kind of goes to show you how important it is to like keep the base healthy from day one, because they're playing catch up. They literally could not have enough seats filled at the tournament to actually give away the money. Just kind of nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
$50,000.
Who doesn't
I'm
love
saying I would have
money?
learned. It's a horrible game, by the way. It's a horrible game. Like we were building our like how to play tutorials. Like I looked at like a ton of different games, and that's the hardest game to play by far. I watched a 45-minute long tutorial. I could not tell you how to play the game. It is really bad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Because the average attention span is about 30 seconds, thanks to TikTok. You know.
Yeah, no, short form content has 100% changed the way people learn. It's kind of nuts. Like you really have to be able to give people things in bite sizes. Otherwise, they're not going to remember it.
Speaking of learning, I do know that we have a link in the show notes that includes your YouTube channel. Do you plan on doing like instructional videos where you walk players? Because I know a lot of like my son's included. When we look at a new game, the first thing we do is we go to BitChute or Rumble or YouTube, and we look, are there instructional videos where someone breaks it down? Because sometimes the people writing the rules don't seem to understand their players have to be able to understand whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, was this written in Latin and then translated to English? Because I don't understand what you're trying to say.
It's hard, and that's why I brought on copywriters, because you're not wrong. Like when you stare at your own game long enough, everything makes sense. And then the second someone else reads the rules, you're like, well, what do you mean? How do you not get this? It becomes frustrating. So you need someone to, and I have a tendency myself as a person to be very cold and clinical, or so I'm told by women in my life. So, I don't see it, but whatever. So, you have to like transcribe things for the average person to read. And so it's super important. So we actually have those videos in development right now. And the perfect length for that video is under 5 minutes. And we'll have that out the first week of December.
Nice. So I guess what I was more saying was not so much that cold and clinical, because that speaks to my cold, dead heart. So I'm with you there.
Yeah.
But it's just like with cookbooks, as I'm learning, because I'm teaching myself to cook. A lot of them write the rules with the presupposition that you know more than you do, which makes it inaccessible to people that are totally like that player who's never played a board game or a card game that says, hey, this art looks pretty badass. I'd like to try it. And then they look at the rules and you assume they know, this base level of information that you built your rule set upon. And if they don't, you've just lost them.
For sure. No, you're right. Yeah. So we refer to like tiers. So like level 1 is a player that is come to this game. They've never played a game, period. So you do guides for level 1, and then you do guides all the way up to like level 5. Level 5 is someone that has played in a professional tournament. And there's different terms you would use for them. There's certain mechanics. Like there's a lot to this game that you could learn that's super advanced, but you could easily teach the game in under 5 minutes. Like we do it at conventions. If you can't teach the game in under 3 minutes, then like, I don't want to talk to you. So like for people on my team, like you have to be able to showcase the game in 3 minutes or less in a way that the player can actually understand and then play back, which we can do. So no, you're not wrong at all. Especially if you're someone that's like a little intimidated by a game, like that's super important.
Okay. So, we try to keep this under an hour and we failed miserably, but it's cool. We do that all the time.
All good. I do it all the time myself.
No,
so you're good.
We failed miraculously in a good way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation, so I'm not complaining. So one, we didn't talk about this offline, but I'm going to say, if you get that thing going on Steam, it might be fun to film a game for this, for the channel. Cause we're looking at that as well with the Asheron's Fall. That I may or may not have sunk my Christmas bonus into. Because
nice.
And you made a bet that you were going to destroy me, which I gladly take your money.
If I lose, like I have to send him coffee, but if I win, he's got to pay for my coffee. So it's a fair trade.
No, honestly, we could do a bunch of stuff. I'd love to have you guys on one night to to play through it. We can take you guys all through it.
We're
and
definitely down for that.
We can even give away some free stuff to some of your listeners too. Some free cards. We have some prototype cards that we give away to people that play test. We can do some really cool stuff with that. So we'd love to have you guys.
See, there you go. It's win-win.
We're gonna get with you offline and book that. But with that being said, was there anything we didn't ask? Because cards are new to us. We haven't involved in that. But the art was cool enough that you had Nick's attention. Was there anything we didn't think to ask that you think we should know?
No, honestly, I think we covered a lot. Nothing that really comes to mind for me. No.
Okay. Well, with that being said, you mentioned that this game is done. You're working on season 2 and 3 expansions. What's next for you besides this game? Because obviously, this was years in the making. So,
well, it's just more of this game for a while.
Okay.
From a company standpoint, like my other brands I run are kind of a little bit less hands-on. In this one, there's just so many moving pieces, but I love it. So my next year is honestly going to be pretty much spent on the road. My old career was on the road. I was on the road like 3 or 4 days a week. So now I'm kind of back to that on the weekends. So it's just developing, making sure that our Kickstarter is successful, our convention run is really strong, and just kind of keeping the foot on the gas and maybe get some sleep at some point. But for now, we're good.
You don't sleep. Sleep's a crutch.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
No.
You take enough caffeine, you don't even feel it. It's fine.
But you at least
get to a point where you don't need it anymore.
You don't. No, you're actually right. Yeah, it's pretty sad. I feel it's kind of disgusting because like my wife especially will get on my ass about it a lot, and I'm just like, dude, just go to bed. I'm not tired. I'm not going to bed. I'll be working on stuff till like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd rather just get it done.
So you get to.
I got a wife that's a night owl, so she'll be right here in the studio with me.
Even better.
And
see, I got to give mine some slack to her credit because she's up at like 6 every morning and going for runs, and then we homeschool the kids, so she's dealing with that. And like, tell you what, I'd rather do what I do than do what she does. So I'm good.
Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
I don't go for the runs. I don't go for the runs, but I do homeschool. But I'm also an insomniac, so like sleep is elusive.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you at least get to take your family with you on these trips? Because conventions, generally speaking, are pretty family friendly.
They are, yeah. My daughter was gonna come with us this past weekend in Baltimore because it was a kind of a day trip for me from Jersey, but she's 4, and she chose to go to the park instead. So she really likes Stabby in the back. So it's fine.
Kids,
I'm not bitter about it or anything at all. So no big.
But till they turn teenagers, they're really gonna dig that knife in hard.
I know.
I'm not into that anymore. It's like you used to be able to recite the Marvel Encyclopedia. What the hell happened to you?
Yeah, man, the betrayers. I tell you, it's crazy.
That needs to be a card. The betrayer. You need to write that into the game.
It's great. They all have their own cards too. Like we even made everyone that goes to a convention, we make I'm wearing like mine. Like I have a shirt that has like my character on.
Hold on, I'm gonna put you on the full solo screen.
Yeah. We have
this guy widescreen access now.
Yeah, we have characters that we use.
So I like it.
All have the characters and your name on it. So we even made one for her character in the game. Her name's Olivia in real life, so her character's name is Oblivia.
Oh, I like it.
It's it's like this ghost unicorn. I let her design it with me. You would think she'd be all eager. She has a shirt and everything, but man, I guess the park was more compelling. So
I'm just saying the betrayer is the perfect card for every dad that's ever dadded and every mom that's ever mommed.
You're probably right about that, man.
You need to run with that, my friend. That is that's gold right there. You just stumbled on the gold.
It's got to be a teenager too.
Oh,
yes.
It's got to be a teenager.
My oldest teenager was in town visiting friends 20 minutes from where I live. Did not contact me to let me know she was there.
Love it. Yeah, it feels good.
The dagger was just so deep.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
like, oh, did she gaslit me like it was my fault?
Of course she does.
Oh, my Lord.
There's moments like
one
that.
Day you're going to have kids.
Yeah, you see the moments like that, you got to call your parents and be like, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I was an ass, and I apologize now. Can you remove the curse that made my kids just like me?
Exactly.
Well, that makes sense because I'm going to need a Ouija board to talk to my mom. She's been passed for a while.
No.
And I would love to tell her, hey, Mom,
episode.
that curse you put on me, that one day I'm going to have a kid just like me, well, it came true. I hope you're happy.
The 13-year-old in the other room that said, Mom, I'd leave you in the fire because you already said you'd die for me.
I mean, it's kind of wobbly.
Wait a minute, you wouldn't wake me up and tell me the house is on fire?
Yeah, that's kind of like stuff.
You already said you would die for me, so I'd just leave you in the fire.
That's just something people say.
Yeah, they don't mean it. Yeah.
It's like I'll make an attempt unless it's too hot and I get burned. I raised you well enough you should probably know how to get out. See you on the other side.
Nick is the kind of parent who would have the two kids in the playpen with a sword between them, and like the one that lives gets the college money. That's Nick's style of parenting.
No, I made him fight for baby food.
That's it. That's what you do.
So survives.
One bottle. You just throw it in between all of them.
It's all very
who wants it more?
Vibes, right?
That's great.
Yeah. All right, so we're definitely going to have you back to do some of the playthroughs because this sounds like a lot of fun. You've got us interested, and we've never played these. None of us have.
Let's go.
So we're going to get you back on the schedule probably after the holiday season because you've got your conventions. With that being said, how can listeners and viewers find you? And as usual, all of the links will be in the show note if you don't remember to write them down. Yeah,
so we're the most active on our Discord.
Okay.
And our Discord handle is literally Mischief and Malice. But if you go to mischiefandmalice.com, all of our links are there. But of all of our socials we use, Discord is the most interactive. We do art reveals every single week, game updates every single week. Our convention schedule is there. My whole team is super active there. We have a pretty big base there too. So I would say that is the number one place to find us right now.
I will say that if you use Discord on your phone and you don't live on your phone because you have things like jobs and bills, maybe mute the channel because it is kind of active. You will drain your battery from the alerts. It's one of those channels. Active. It's a good problem to have.
Okay, Discord.
And speaking of Discord channels, I'm looking for people to help me organize ours because the Blasters and Blades will have a channel soon. I know you have, dear listeners, reached out and you want to get away from the face spaces wherever possible. And so we strive to provide that, not prevent it. Provide, I promise. Stabby will not be there. She says Discord gives her a headache. It confuses her. She just got used to Zuckerberg. She still misses Tom, her first friend on MySpace.
Bro, I got on the McFarlane Discord and my phone just doesn't shut the F up.
Yeah.
First and foremost, JR.
Oh, no.
You are an insomniac just as bad as I am. And you keep me up enough.
Well, I'll wake up at 6 in the morning. There's like 30 missed conversations between these two. And I'm like, oh, I'm not even getting it.
The admin chat for the podcast, he's like, I just mute it. I look when I have time.
I don't blame it.
We both have insomnia, so I'll be writing and then like, hey, and I'll send her all these annoying memes. Because what else are you gonna do with memes but spam?
I only sleep 4 hours, man. You guys are like, now that's an hour catching up with y'all's talks. I'm like, I got comments, man, and then I gotta go work a 10-hour shift.
All right, so we appreciate you you coming on. First off, we know we generally encourage people to write reviews when it comes to like books and comics. Is there anywhere for card games that they can leave reviews? How does that work?
Actually, yeah, we have a page up on boardgamegeek.com.
All right, that is
that is the number one board game site. So in those links, yeah, anybody can go on there. They can learn more about the game, see some pictures of it, and then that's where a lot of our reviews are had right now. We just started getting reviews there actually because prior to that we kept the page private, but now that we're out of play testing and people are actually playing for real, I opened it up.
Sandy. So this is where we remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers and board game players and card game players and comic book readers find the right products, people. So do your part and speak your mind. It really does help. And we will link to all of Tox's stuff for Mischief and Malice in the show notes. You can find us on our link tree at linktr.ee, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChute, the Rumbles, the Twitters, the email for the podcast, where it's just business only, please. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. And last but not least, we link to Madam Stabby Stab on Instagram, Twitter, and email. So if you want to send hate mail, she would love to respond and make you cry, but I'm just saying we're not paying for your therapy afterwards, all right?
No.
Have you gotten any hate mail yet?
I got spam mail.
No hate
I
mail.
sent her hate mail and she was like, stop flirting with me. I'm like, well, hell, I guess I got to step my game up. So
Stabby makes people
take
cry,
a lot
dude.
to freak me out. So, I mean.
So you have your challenge, dear listener. All right.
The spam guy cry, though.
That's excellent. You can find us on our website at anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can support the show and help keep the lights on. These episodes are not free to produce, so every little bit helps. Or you can support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until the caffeine pours out of their eyeballs. I understand it's the right season, so Stabby drinks things like cider and tea and weird stuff that you can't put bourbon in. I don't know what that's about.
You don't like bourbon?
Well, I mean, nobody's perfect, Nick. Jeez.
Yeah, I know. It's a hard marriage, but we make it work.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's next? Like, evil and light, darkness and light together? I mean, just come on.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Sheep's in line. I do not know where this is going, sir. Please.
Oh, no.
Leave in the comments what movie that's from, and I'll send you a free comic book.
All right, you heard it first. All right, and with that being said, you also can support the show by going to our link in the comments or in the show notes. Coffee Brand Coffee is an affiliate of the program. Podcast Grunts. Oh, it's been a long night. Podcast Grunts as the discount code. Get you 10% off. Company is made in America by Americans. You're helping your country. You're helping us. You're getting good coffee. It tastes delicious. I'm just saying, if you put it a little bit strong, you get a little jittery. I'm just saying, but that's not a bad thing. I'm enjoying
that's my preferred drink when I want a freedom boner.
That's right. I'm just, I can hear colors and see sound. It is glorious.
I was halfway to work before I realized I forgot my car.
Well, like we told you not to use Red Bull in your coffee, sir. That was your fault.
That replaced the water, and that's how I can
for you guys
see sounds and hear colors.
Air.
Well, speaking of off air, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-hosts who are overly caffeinated and underslept, tired, exhausted, insomniac. I don't know. I shouldn't do this on the fly. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast, and we'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you for stopping by, Tox. This was a lot of fun. You've got us hooked. I'm going to mortgage the house and buy your game next.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thank you. And